Okay, today's project is this Pioneer turntable, PL300. It's a direct drive unit. If I turn it on here, got our little neon speed indicator here. Now, this was originally missing the head shell and cartridge here, but I've found one on an old turntable I've got, but I doubt that the needle's any good on this. I don't think it's even in there anymore. Now, the problem with this is it doesn't want to sit, the auto return doesn't want to work, the arm base of this piece is stuck up, and lifting the arm up, so there's something wrong with the internal mechanism here. The motor seems to be running fine, and according to the speed here it's going okay. So we'll have a look at this mechanism and see if we can find out what's causing the problem. When that arm's down, that should drop. Looks like the weight's actually set wrong on this too, which probably doesn't help. It's probably a bit too heavy, but try and get that balanced. Yeah, it's trying to push it back, but something's definitely wrong in the mechanism, so we'll take the bottom off and have a look and see if we can fix this. One thing you might want to do before you take the bottom off is remove the platter, because these are just sitting there. So if we've got to turn this upside down, that'll just fall off. There's our speed things. Looks like it just goes through a little mirror here. But anyway, remove the platter first. You don't want that crashing in and breaking your lid or anything. So then it should be, if you've got a needle in yours or cartridge, probably best to remove it while you're messing around with it, or you can clip it in place. And it should be safe to flip the unit over and remove these screws in the feet, and that should get our bottom off. We may have to drop this through and remove the top. Yes. Might have to remove that weight altogether. So I might just have to, we've got another plug at the front, plus a couple of wires for our neon, I think, and that unplugs. Obviously make sure you've turned off the power before you go fiddling with any of this. And that's what we have inside this unit. So it looks like under the top cover there we've got something to drive our neon for our speed indication. I think that's what that is, yeah. Voltage selector, our power transformer, and on the bottom half here we've got our mechanism, we've got our direct drive motor, which is probably something very much like a VCR capstan motor. Yeah, here's our gear, which should be driving our arm and stuff. Most likely this is just going to have dried up grease or something in here, because this often people put them in the garage or wherever for 20-30 years, don't use them, and when they go to use them again, all the grease will be dried up and nothing will work. In the older motor driven ones, often this shaft will be seized, if it is a shaft or the idler tyre that runs it, depending how they set up, but often you'll find it's just dried up grease. So we'll get the cover off this as well. Not quite sure how that all comes apart, but hopefully when we take these screws out, the tone arm comes with it. Like it. Definitely something holding. Oh, there it is. Okay. So it gets our tone arm out of the way. And what's the bit? This thing here. This is not really moving. So the grease, looks to be brass piece that slides up and down the shaft there, so that's probably should take these screws out. Put them to one side. So basically we're going to have to check everything in this mechanism and see if anything's seized up. All this sort of grease here, yeah, it's fairly gooey. That probably wants replacing. Yeah, for some reason when grease isn't used for a while it tends to go very thick. If it's kept in use it seems to be fine, but as soon as you stop using it, it goes thick and seizes up. So that mechanism seems to be operating quite freely, but we'll re-grease that. It looks like it's probably mainly this actual shaft here is the problem. That's as tight as, so rotates quite well, but yeah, it's pretty stiff on the up and down side, so that's probably the main problem. But anyway, I'll wipe most of this grease off, I think, and we'll replace that, and hopefully that'll get the mechanism working again. So on this bottom part of the mechanism you can just wipe the grease off with a bit of paper towel. Just remember where it was, and ideally you want to remove all that grease. You can use a bit of metho or terps or something to get rid of all of it, because once it's gone sticky it tends to keep going sticky, so we can remove that. Then we can just apply, this is Polyglide from Konig, and just a bit on the, geez, I'm getting low on that, a bit on a screwdriver and just put that back where the original grease was. A whole lot on there, not sure if it was meant to be on there. And give the mechanism a bit of a run. Make sure it's actually working. And just to get the grease spread over the parts that should have grease on them. So now we'll have to pull this other bit to bits. I'll see if I can separate it from the unit and just get the grease off my screwdriver, because this is a bit annoying having all this cable here. Looks like we're going to probably have to take there's an earth wire there, remove that. That's made it a bit easier. So now we can remove this base piece. Like a bit of one of the feet there, so those rubber feet are probably stuffed as well. And so we're probably going to have to remove, that might be okay. There's not a lot of grease on these parts, which is good. Yeah, they all seem free. I think that's, is that meant to stay there? Oh, that's our anti-skate control. That's all free and working. Probably never had any grease on those bits. That all seems very free and good. What have we here? Oh, okay. That's our arm lifting. So a lot of these I think were meant to have a type of grease in them that was slow moving, so that your arm goes down slowly. So we probably, in theory, shouldn't just replace that with normal grease. I think you can get a special slow kind of grease, but if we pop this, move that out of the way, we have a circlip here. There is a spring under that, so I need to be ready for that spring to come out. Okay, there's our circlip. Yeah, the grease on that's really thick. Our spring. Now we should be able to remove the tone arm out of the way a bit and lift this up. Okay, so the plastic bit came off, but we actually want this brass bit here. I'm not sure if that's actually going to come out or not. Oh yeah, if I push on the bottom of it, it's very tight, very hard to grip. Ah, there we go. So we need to wipe all the original grease off this. Put a bit of metho would be a good thing to use. Of course it's empty. Yeah, so we've got some metho on the paper towel now. Clean all the old grease off. I think that just sits in there, so that's no problem. Yep. Still best to clean all the parts that may have any old grease on them, because that does fit down in that shaft. If necessary, use a screwdriver or something, just poke paper towel on there, remove any grease on that, remove any grease on the part of the turntable here. It's got the outside. We're going to have to shove something down the inside as well. Like so. Yeah, that's right down inside there. Rotate it around, get rid of any old grease. And if we put this back together, hopefully we've got a lot more play there now. Oh yeah, much better. It pretty much falls down on its own. So we'll just put some standard grease on it for the moment and see how that goes. Plenty on there. Actually, I should have done the top bit first. Remove it from there, because that goes on the inside here, so we want this outside bit covered in grease. Grease everywhere. Probably wiped a bit of that off. So recut it again. Making sure we see that back in that little hole there. Yeah, it's shooting up on its own, so that's got plenty of play in it now. This other lever's pushing on it. Yeah, not a problem. So we'll put our clean any grease off this spring. Seat that back in. Circlip's a bit greasy as well, so remove any old grease from that as well. We don't want any sticky grease anywhere, and it's a matter of getting that back into the slot. Get the right pliers, and we should be able to clip that back in there. That's it. Make sure our circlip's fully in the slot there, which it is. Whoops, that's popped back out of its hole. Yeah, so the spring is pushing that up. once that lever moves, that should just fall down onto the record, which it does. Especially if we put that into the down position. Put that in the up position, yeah, that lifts the arm back up, that drops it down, so that's a lot better than what we had before. Not sure what that is, or what that does. I'll have to... Okay, that's connected to something here maybe. Yeah, it must relate to something on the bottom. I think the rest of this is all in good operating order. Something seems to be stopping that from coming back. That fits against there. Yeah, well, that depends on how that... Oh yeah, I see that. If that pops up. Yes, that sits on top of there, okay. And that's the bit that swings it back and forwards. Adjust as a razor, excellent. So we'll have to get this attached back onto the bottom. Put our earth screw back in there. Okay, so we've fixed the problem with the arm lifter here. It now goes down and up properly, but that hasn't actually fixed the problem with the turntable. I mean, it's fixed one of the problems, but what we're also having is this: the auto return part isn't actually turning the motor off. This should... We've got this gear here which engages with the motor, but it keeps engaging. So what's meant to happen is, as our arm comes to the centre here, it slides a lever across, or lever across this way, which is meant to push on this little mechanism on our gear, so that this motor can then... So there's a few teeth missing from the gear. This little metal bit, I think, flicks inwards, which allows obviously some sort of tooth wheel on the motor here to engage with that where there's normally a gap. And what it should do is, once it's engaged, the motor will keep spinning, our arm will go back and then drop, and this, yeah, we should hit this toothless part of the gear again, and the motor should then also, there's a micro switch in there, should switch the motor off, and the motor should stop as well. And basically nothing should start up again until we move this arm, which will push this lever across, which again engages this, and I assume somehow presses on the micro switch here. So the motor, as the arm moves, the motor will start up, the gear will engage. Actually, the gear won't engage, the motor will just start, and we can put our needle on the record, and this other part, auto stop, will be disengaged back into the toothless part there, until the groove of the record brings the arm back across, in which case the lever will push again, engaging this gear, and the motor that's been spinning to play the whole record will then send this back. This gear should spin around till it reaches the dead spot there, the toothless part, and our power should also cut off to the motor. So what we've got is a problem somewhere in the lever or this part. These actually are quite... The grease has also gone on these two little metal parts here, so think that's the first thing I'll do. They don't seem to have a spring or anything to return them, so I'm not sure how they normally, obviously should sit back. And I'm not quite sure what this other part here does, but I assume that should probably go back with it. But anyhow, we'll give this a clean and see if that fixes our problem. If I've got a flat blade screwdriver, take this little circlip off. And there's a little plastic washer there. And this should, I assume, just lift up, which it's fairly reluctant to do. Very reluctant to do. Is there anything else holding that on? I don't think so. Yeah, it's starting to go, but not. It doesn't want to come right off, so that grease is pretty tight on there. Ah, there we go. So we have this little, two little metal plates, which were sliding against each other, and oh, there we go, that slides within there. Yeah, a little bit of grease each end there, which is probably, yeah, very sticky. Pretty well had it, and a bit of grease should go on that shaft as well. Little brass bushing there. Still not sure if that's going to pull it back, but we'll give that a clean up. Use a bit of metho if you can still get some with this virus scare. People are using it for hand sanitizer, I think. Supposedly metho and isopropyl alcohol very difficult to get at the moment, but luckily I ran out and bought a bottle just before all this kicked off. So we'll poke a bit of that paper towel soaked in metho up the bushing there. Oh, I better do the pin as well. Remove any old grease because it's sticky and well and truly had its day. Yeah, it's a lot freer now, even without replacing any grease. So wherever you took grease off, you should put grease back on. I can see a couple of scrape marks here where the grease was, and the two little metal plates were touching each other, or scraping against each other. Oops. So finish the grease on there, and also put a little bit of grease around this shaft. Put that right around it, and we can reassemble everything then. Oops, if I can get it on the pin. This little pin there goes in that hole, another part of the metal goes in there. Now that's much freer than it was. Now I've lost my little black washer. Where did that go? It's probably actually stuck to me and moved. No, there's the circlip, so where did the washer go? Might have to go back through the footage and find it again. I think sometimes they do actually stick to you, and or maybe it's stuck to this rag. Alright. Well, I've got no idea where that went, which is often the case with these things. I might have to find another one. I do have a kit of them somewhere. Okay, so I found another little clear washer that'll do the job. So we'll put our circlip back on, which is a fiddly job in itself. Very small circlip, this one. Oh, very fiddly little mongrel. It's probably more likely to shoot across the room than actually go back on, but gotta try it. Oh, come on. This is a really annoying one. I'll have to put some thinner pliers. Some very needly nose on, so that might work. Ah, gotcha. That's definitely in there. It's moving freer, but I'm not sure that we've actually achieved anything as far as... Ah, we have. So So that's all that was. That's now disengaged. We'll try it again. Once we bring this right over, we can see the gear is re-engaged. I'll get my hands out of the way. And yeah, it goes across once and disengages. So that's all that was. So if we bring that in again, while spinning our motor, we've now hit the center of the record. Gear should rotate once. And there should also be, we should also lose power to this motor, which I'll have to plug the top half back in to check that. Excellent. And the same thing, this is a lever off our cut switch. So if we're rotating this, and I think which way, yeah, we press it that way, that'll also that also pushes on the lever which the arm pushes on, which will again engage our gear and swing the arm back, and then the motor should turn off. But we better check that the motor does actually turn off. So it's simply a bit of grease. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how that mechanism works exactly, but obviously a lack of lubrication was stopping something from moving or pushing it where it shouldn't go. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but now it works perfectly. So lubing that, and also lubricating the little metal parts on here, should hopefully be enough to get this turntable running again. It's just a matter of check the power switch in it, because I'm not quite sure, that's run off something else under this mechanism that we pulled apart before we lubed that. So we'll have to put this top back on. I'll put the grommet out of that, but that'll be fine for now. So we've got to plug this back into the motor, and there's a power connector here as well that goes up onto the upper board. Just make sure that actually slots onto the pins and not just onto one of them. Well, I better get my arm through the hole. That would definitely help. Although, we'll do it for a minute. And this is why you're working it with no needle in it, no stylus in it, because it'll probably won't last too long otherwise without getting broken. Okay, that's roughly back together. So it looks like we can apply power again and see what happens. That's weird. Now the motor isn't going for some reason. So that seems to be hitting against, maybe that's just sitting this might actually be sitting on it. I think that might have been the problem. I don't know. So that's extremely strange. I'll turn this off and check. Did I actually put the plugs back on right? It seems to be plugged in. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Still on 240 volts. Well, that's very weird. Okay, the motor seems to spin freely. It's definitely connected to that. The only other thing is this plug, but that's the pin plugged on the right. There's only one way that can go. So yeah, very strange. I wonder if something could have shorted out or something. It shouldn't do. So I've gone and pulled the motor apart. I can't see the electrolytic capacitors on this motor board seem to measure okay. So I've pulled the rotor off just to see if there's anything stuck on this magnet or something like that, or a crack in the magnet, and it all looks good. Thought it'd be a good chance to have a look at what's inside this. It's just like a video capstan motor, something like that. They basically switch these coils in sequence, like a stepper motor type setup. You've got a chip under here, big flat pack PA 2005 by the look of it, which does all the switching, and a couple of driver type chips. Crystal, I guess, sets our frequency, our quartz lock, phase lock loop, which I guess one of these chips is a phase lock loop. But yeah, no idea why this motor started pulsing weirdly like it has. So no obvious sign. Looks like a few Hall effect sensors, which probably just detect the motor's moving, or don't think it really tells where it's at. But yeah, there's nothing obvious here. I've resoldered a few solder joints on the connectors and the main chip, but no, there doesn't seem to be any mechanical problem with this motor. It'll just magnetise itself straight onto the metal backplate here. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on here. Put this circuit back on. Like so. And we have this, be a good chance to lubricate this shaft, which is part of the motor. So I'll give that a clean off the old grease. So it seemed pretty free, but it certainly won't hurt to clean that off. And also clean up inside the shaft here where it goes, because it certainly won't hurt to remove any old grease from there. There's my grease. Give it a coat of fresh grease. And some light machine oil will probably work there too. Yeah. Bit of resistance from the air inside there not wanting to come out, but it's gone on. Now somewhere here I've got my screws. They're tight. It's probably spinning a little bit freer, but that didn't seem to be the problem. So basically we've got this micro switch here, which turns the motor on and off and goes back through this connector to the board. So I've just replaced that under on the power transformer board here with a clip lead for now, just to keep it permanently on. Yeah, it seems to start spinning alright, and then it goes into this jerking motion. It is slowly rotating, as you can see with that red. Actually it's gone backwards now. Unless I'm imagining it seems to be going forward. If you follow the red mark. Yeah, now it's actually going backwards and then forward again. And yet there wasn't a problem with this motor at all before. It was running perfectly fine, so I'm not sure what's decided to die here, or whether it's just because it's a colder day. But I did try heating it with a hairdryer, and that didn't seem to have any effect. Certainly very strange. Doesn't seem to be affecting it. So there's something very strange going on here, but this certainly not getting the motor operating correctly. It's like the actual coils are fighting each other or something strange going on. Instead of flowing nicely around, when you turn it off, it actually spins quite nicely. So I have no idea what's going on there, but the motor was working fine before, and I'm pretty sure I didn't do anything to it. Didn't short out the circuit board or anything like that, so I have no idea what's going on. I might just resolder all the joints in it in case, and if that doesn't fix it, I'm not sure what I can do with it, whether any parts would be available for this thing anymore. But now it's one of the problems with working on old equipment. You sometimes find other faults in it. Sometimes even create other faults in them, but this didn't seem to have any motor issues before. Yeah, soldering's not too bad in it. Not every joint is perfect, but certainly nothing likely to cause any real trouble. And using an ESR meter, the capacitors, electrolytic capacitors, at least seem to be within tolerance. Which, you know, normally they don't get too hot or anything in these turntables and audio gear, so they generally last pretty well. So I think that's the problem there, but yeah, don't think they earth anything through that, but sometimes you get a weird earth issue or something, but pretty unlikely. But yeah, definitely no joints that are really showing up as dry, but it only takes one. And there is a risk doing this that I'll add a solder bridge somewhere and add more problems. So you've got to be very careful not to bridge between these fine tracks. You know, this is all looking fine so far. So yeah, I have no idea why this has decided to play up at this point. Yeah, and they all seem to be fine. Not sure what that one is. Yeah, just some test points and stuff. So that shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, no, everything's looking good there. Now I don't know if it's maybe something to do with the crystal oscillator or something could have died, but whether that would affect anything. Yeah, it starts off, seems to run once and then do a full rotation and then dies. Okay, I just checked the voltage in this, looked at the circuit diagram, had a quick think about it, and I thought, what if I actually put the platter back on the motor? Maybe it's just something to do with the fact that it hasn't got the weight it's expecting on there, and it seems to have been the problem. If I put the platter back on, just with the motor sitting here it seems to be running again. So, so that motor jerking around and carrying on is just something to do with lack of load on it, possibly. It's actually probably spinning too fast or something, faster than what the chips are expecting. But anyway, it seems to run, so I'll reassemble the unit, and maybe it'll actually work this time. So it's just the silliest thing like that. Okay, so when we're putting this part back in, there's just this lever here, which is our play cut switch, I think it is, which will push on this little lever here, engages this gear, and our tone arm will go back to its rest position there. So just make sure that's back this way. And there is one other little lever, but that just seems to sit behind this piece here, so that shouldn't be a big problem. I think the tone arm, I don't know if it really, because it does move the parts around, so I think it was in the more central position there when we took it off. Get it back on its 4 screws here. Yeah, that should push against something. Put these 4 screws back in. Okay, so again, if we push on that, that should try to return the arm. So that didn't seem to go quite back into place as it should. And there it is. Oh, I'm holding on to that, so it's done it a second time. That doesn't help. So we'll plug our plugs back in, remove the clip lead I had here just to bypass the switch, and just make sure this other little springy bit off your cut switch there is sitting so that it'll push that, so it'll sit to the left of that piece, because it's going to push that sideways, so I can probably push that a little bit that way. Plug our motor switch back in. And then we have a polarised plug here for the voltages for our motor. Just to the left of that, our cut switch. And something here's in the way, I think that's this cable. Okay. And so we're back with the motor carrying on a bit. Put our platter back on it. I was sure that motor ran okay before without a platter on it, but yeah, it seems to run fine with the weight of the platter back on it. Our speed seems to be locked in pretty well there. If we bring this towards the centre, yeah, there we go. Auto return should drop down. And the motor should stop. Yeah, well, the lights have gone out, so the power's off on the motor, so we're back in business. If we have that sitting there and we press our cut button, that should also trigger it to return and cut off. Yep. About the only other thing to check is our speed. Yeah, that seems to speed up to 45 okay. Just the slightest little speed variation there according to the strobe. Yeah, slight speed off there. I'm not sure if that is meant to flick along like that, but it probably is. Okay, if I had a stylus I could actually check that with a record and see if it actually sounds like it's running at the right speed, but I don't have one for this. Yeah, might have to get a different cartridge for that, but it's turning off, so we seem to have fixed it. I don't know why that motor's carrying on like that, but it seems to be without a load on it. It gets quite jerky and carries on Again, like I say, maybe it's just running that little bit too fast or something without the load of the platter. Obviously it's designed to have this quite substantial weight running on it. But I think we're safe to put the unit back together and it should be fixed. So one thing we'll have to do is put this little clamp grommet for the audio signal lead back in there, and it's just a matter of squeezing the outside part with a pair of pliers quite tight. And it's got that little mongrel joiner there. Get it in the hole, and once it starts going in, we'll just move the pliers out and that'll just clip back in place like that. So that's all we have to do there. Take the platter back off, flip it upside down, and we can put our feet back in. These ones have actually seen better days, but look at it, the rubber parts are not in the best condition. They've deteriorated quite badly, so I'll rip that off and just put that little end bits back on, so they would have dampened this spring action a little bit. But I'm not sure if they would have really done all that much. Maybe it's more of a just a dust cover, so I don't think they really matter, those rubber parts. But I'll put them back in since they're part of the way everything's sat in there. If we've got the ends on it, it should be pretty right. Yep. Yeah, I'm not sure that end bit even matters, to be honest. Yeah, no, that one's pretty poor condition. Oh well, I might just shove it back in there so it's got the part back in there, but really I think we could throw these rubber parts away without too much trouble. Might have to, I'm not sure if it's going to go back in the hole. So yeah, this hard plastic part and the spring are the main parts that do any work. That's not going back in. A bit out of alignment. That's better. Slide it across and it should actually go in the hole. That's it. There's another one. Yeah, I think we'll leave that rubber part off. Just make sure the hole seems to line up. Should be. And our last one. Get away. And there we have it. Yeah, so I've got a bit of suspension there still, which is the main thing, so a bit of anti-vibration there. So the gear's engaged. Okay, let's plug this back in. Try it out. Yeah, that seems to do the job. If I can find an old stylus, I might be able to just attach something to the end of this just so we can hear the mechanical sound of it playing on a record, just to make sure our sound is right. So I'll see if I can find one. Okay, so I've pulled the old, well, this wasn't the original head shell and cartridge of this unit. I've got no stylus for this one. But I've just realised the Akai, which used to sit on top of an old Akai turntable I've got that used to sit on top of an old MIDI shelf system kind of thing, which just has a 12 volt input rather than 240 volt. That actually has a removable cartridge and still has the stylus with it. It was working reasonably well, but the stylus is a little bit bent on it. But anyway, this is, we should be able to swap these little pins over, these little plugs, which just come off. So this one's got, looking at the connector side, it's got white on the left, red on the right on the bottom. and then the top two are blue and green. Green on the left, blue on the right, so these little pins should just come off, or little plugs that go onto the pins. Oh, that one's a bit tight. Oh, it's actually come off the wire, typical. So that's this old, I forget what sort of cartridge this was. Oh, that little mark on the side, I did look up what they were, but oh, the ADC. Oh yes, these are labelled as, looks like left ground, left signal maybe, RS, and then right ground. So, as is often the case, looks like the white and red are our left and right signals, and the blue and green are our grounds. If I remove the pins from this back eye, which is the other way around with the signal on the top pins. So what we have is an Audio Technica AT71, made in Japan, so it's probably not a bad little unit. Currently got the stylus off, except the only problem is it's got these, I don't know if they come off, these little threaded parts on the bottom, which makes it hard when we've got our screws on the top here. But anyway, this isn't, oh, we've got left and right. Oh yeah, positive is the two closest to there, so it is the opposite way around. So for my purposes, I don't really care which way around these wires go, but yeah, pins are actually smaller, so we're going to have to squeeze these little connectors a bit tighter. So it's left positive. I don't think that's even connected, is it? It's only just hanging on. Geez, they're not very good condition. Now, if you have any doubts about this, we could get our multimeter here, go to continuity, find the RCA plugs wherever they vanish to, on our leads, and this should just be, these wires should just go straight through, but we'll have to connect this back up. Screw that on. If we go to, obviously we've got white and red already here, so they should correspond to these wires, but they don't. Of course the white goes to the red on the head shell. Oh, well, that might just be this new head shell. Yep, so they connect, they're just the opposite colours, but that's because these wires are actually part of this, and now my red one's broken off. And same with the earth, we should be able to check back to the green and blue here. Yep, yeah, they're connected to ground, so they don't really matter which way around they go. Though I'm sure the purists out there would worry about that, but anyway, that's one way to check with it, how your wiring to your head shell's going. But now my little red wire's broken off. These have certainly had some use, so the white one's about to go as well, so I might resolder all these on, and then we'll see how we go. Well, we still seem to have a speed issue here, so this stylus isn't the greatest, but it's not sounding very good. Definitely running slow and a bit of wow and flutter there by the sound of it, so looks like this unit still does have a problem. Maybe tied in with that motor doing weird stuff. Because I'm fairly sure it used to run okay even with no platter, but I'm not sure if I really ran it with no platter. That's the only problem. So it seems something weird still going on here. Okay, so one more thing I'll try on this is actually setting the record speed, because it does seem to be slightly out. The strobe light here, which camera probably can't pick up, which I think is actually LED rather than neon. A lot of these had a neon light, but I think this actually has like about 3 or 4 LEDs to run it. But anyway, there are a couple of trim pots on that motor, and thankfully they've left a couple of holes in the bottom here to adjust them, though they're not labelled as to which is 33 and which is 45. And I can't really, not sure if I'm actually turning the pot or not. Oh, there it is, I've found one of them. So what I need to do is start this up. Yeah, something has gone wrong. There we go. Not sure what's hitting on what there, but if we check our strobe light, and that pot doesn't seem to have any effect. So we're on 33 at the moment. Or are we on 45? 45. Yeah, switches in, so 45. I can't seem to get this trim pot. Ah, there we are. Ah, that's it. That's set to 45. The strobe light is stable. Go to 33. Go back to our other hole. That's rock steady by the look of it. Excellent. So for some reason, maybe with me fiddling around with it, it's managed to, I might have moved the pot slightly or something just by holding it, I'm not sure, but I'll chuck a record back on here. Not sure if that's what sounded like wow and flutter really was, or whether it was just the slowness of the record. Definitely sounding better. Yeah, I think that's actually alright by the sound of that. Hook up another speaker here so we've got stereo and just have a listen to it. Seems to be okay. And it's certainly a lot better sounding than it was before. I'll try another record and just see how that sounds. Okay, I've got some Def Leppard Armageddon 12-inch nuclear mix. Thanks for watching.